Friends, if you're interested in watching the emotional and gripping film The Last Rodeo, 2025, in English, then make sure to like this video. And if you're visiting our channel for the very first time, don't forget to subscribe because we bring you all the latest updates, reviews, and behind-the-scenes information on new and upcoming movies. In today's video, we're going to dive deep into everything you need to know about The Last Rodeo, a movie that's been making waves with its heart-touching storyline, powerful performances, and stunning visuals. We're going to talk about what The Last Rodeo is all about, what kind of story it tells, what makes it special, and why it's getting so much attention from audiences and critics alike. You'll get to know where you can watch this film, whether it's available on any OTT platform or if it's airing on a satellite TV channel. If you've been wondering how to catch this film, then stay tuned because I'll be sharing all the important viewing details in this video. Not just that, we'll also take you behind the curtain to explore the different departments that brought this movie to life. We'll talk about the technical side of the film, how the cinematography adds to the emotional weight of the story, how the music enhances the tone of the movie, and the efforts that went into pre-production and filming. From the early development of the script to the post-production polish, every part of this film's journey is fascinating. We'll also take a look at the budget of the movie and how much it has earned at the box office so far. Whether it's a hit or a sleeper success, you'll know everything by the end of this video. Then comes the story itself. I'll tell you the main plot of The Last Rodeo without giving away any big spoilers, and I'll also give you a mini review so you can get a sense of what to expect if you decide to watch it. Is it worth your time? Is it emotional, dramatic, or action-packed? You'll find out right here. Along with that, we'll go through the full star cast of the film. I'll tell you which actor has played which role, and we'll also talk about how well the actors have performed. There are some brilliant performances in this film that deserve appreciation, and I'll highlight which ones truly stood out. We'll also share some behind-the-scenes trivia and fun facts about the production that fans of the movie will definitely enjoy. So friends, make sure you stick around till the end of the video, because there's a lot to discover about The Last Rodeo. Whether you're a fan of heartfelt dramas or just curious about this new release, this video will give you everything you need to know. Let's get started. Alright friends, let's saddle up and take a deep dive into the powerful, emotionally rich, and surprisingly unconventional story of The Last Rodeo. A film that doesn't just tell a tale, it invites you to live it, to feel every bruise, every regret, and every fleeting moment of hope. This isn't just about a man and a horse, or a rodeo and a trophy. This is about time, memory, loss, legacy, and the painful beauty of trying to set things right before it's too late. We kick things off not in the middle of a wild rodeo, but in silence. The dusty wind blows across a barren landscape, and we meet Jack Bronson, a weathered former rodeo champion, now living a quiet and almost invisible life in a forgotten corner of the Southwest. His glory days, long gone. His fame, faded. His body, battered and barely holding together. But what really aches isn't just his bones. It's the loneliness, the memories that linger in the corners of his mind, and the bridges he's burned over the years. Right away, the film grabs you, not with action, but with atmosphere. There's a heavy silence that says more than words ever could. And just when you start thinking this is going to be a slow, meditative ride, the movie yanks the reins in a different direction. Jack receives a letter. A real one. Crumpled, yellowed at the edges, like it's been carried around for weeks. It's from his son, now in his early 20s, whom Jack hasn't spoken to in years. The letter isn't exactly warm, it's raw, blunt, and angry. It basically says, "I'm not writing because I forgive you. I'm writing because I want answers." And just like that, we're off. Not on a physical journey yet, but on an emotional one that spirals between past and present, pride and shame, silence and revelation. This is where The Last Rodeo really breaks away from your typical film structure. It doesn't go from point A to B to C. It doesn't follow the expected rise-fall-redemption formula. Instead, it plays with time like an old cowboy tuning his guitar, slightly out of tune but with soul. Scenes from Jack's past, moments of fame, love, betrayal, and loss, are layered between his attempts to make contact with his son in the present. Sometimes these flashbacks are sudden, like emotional ambushes. Sometimes they unfold slowly, triggered by a photograph, a saddle, the sound of a rodeo bell. One of the film's most brilliant moves is how it keeps the audience guessing, not with plot twists, but with emotional ambiguity. Did Jack walk out on his family, or was he pushed away? Was he selfish, or just broken and scared? The story doesn't give you simple answers. Instead, it lays out the puzzle pieces and lets you piece them together. And as we learn more about the younger Jack, driven, cocky, magnetic, you start to understand the older Jack's silence. He's not just ashamed of his past. He's haunted by it. Now let's talk about some of the big emotional turning points, because wow, this movie knows how to deliver them. There's a moment where Jack, desperate to reconnect, travels to a small town where his son works on a ranch. The reunion doesn't go smoothly. In fact, it barely qualifies as a conversation. His son wants nothing to do with him. But what makes the scene so devastating is how little is said. You see the pain in their eyes, the stubbornness in their stance. You know this isn't going to be resolved with one tearful hug. And that's what makes it real. Another unforgettable sequence. A dreamlike flashback of Jack at the height of his fame, riding a bucking bull while the crowd roars, juxtaposed with a present-day shot of him struggling just to get out of bed. The contrast is brutal, and it's meant to be. This isn't just a physical decline. It's the slow, painful erosion of identity. Who is Jack if he's not a cowboy? If he's not a champion? If he's just a man with a past no one wants to talk about? Eventually, Jack gets an offer to ride one last time at a local charity rodeo. It's not glamorous. It's not televised. It's not even well attended. But to him, it's not about the audience. It's about proving to himself, and maybe to his son, that he's still got something left in him. The big question isn't will he win? It's will he survive? And deeper than that, will this be the ride that gives him peace? What's so special about The Last Rodeo is that it never tells you how to feel. It just shows you the raw truth of aging, of regrets, of trying to hold on to something that's already slipping through your fingers. It explores the idea that sometimes redemption isn't dramatic, it's quiet, it's messy, it's a small conversation, a broken fence being fixed, a nod of the head where once there was silence. By weaving together present-day struggles and past memories, the film creates a rich, textured narrative that doesn't just entertain, it lingers. You think about Jack long after the credits roll. You think about what it means to be a father, a legend, a man. You think about the things you've lost, the chances you didn't take, and whether it's ever too late to try again. So no, The Last Rodeo doesn't follow the usual rules of storytelling, and thank goodness for that. It bucks expectations, just like the bulls Jack used to ride. And just like those rides, it's bumpy, dangerous, and absolutely unforgettable. Let's get into the real ride of The Last Rodeo. Not the bulls, not the arenas, not the dust-choked fairgrounds, but the people. Because while the horses may buck and the crowd might cheer, it's the characters, their flaws, their struggles, their quiet heartbreaks, that hold this film together like worn leather reins. If this movie was a rodeo, then Jack Bronson is the bull rider hanging on for dear life, but the arena? That's his own past. And man, is it one rough ride. Let's start with Jack Bronson. He's not the hero in shining boots. He's not even the guy who wants to be the hero anymore. Jack is the definition of complicated. A former legend in the rodeo world, the guy who once made headlines, now reduced to a nameless face in a dive bar, nursing a whiskey and pretending that his past doesn't itch like an old scar. Jack isn't larger than life anymore. He's life-sized. Flawed, grizzled, emotionally bottled up. And that's what makes him so compelling. He isn't trying to win anyone over. He isn't begging for redemption. He's just trying to figure out if it's even possible to put the pieces back together when they've been scattered for so long you forget what the picture looked like. And his growth. Oh, it's not some dramatic overnight epiphany. It's more like slow erosion. You see it in the way he speaks. At first barely saying a full sentence, then slowly letting words slip out like they cost him something. It's in how he starts reacting, at first cold and defensive, later uncertain and vulnerable. Jack doesn't have a Hollywood-style transformation. No makeover, no sudden tears and forgiveness monologues. His journey is subtle and heavy, like dragging an old saddle up a hill you're not sure you'll ever climb again. Now let's bring in Luke, Jack's estranged son. And trust me, Luke isn't here for a heartwarming reunion. This guy is all fire and steel. You can see it in his eyes, he's built a wall the size of Texas between himself and Jack. He spent years holding on to resentment like it's his inheritance. And yet, beneath that shield, there's a flicker of something dangerous. Hope. The hope that maybe, just maybe, the man who abandoned him has a reason. Maybe the stories he's heard are only part of the truth. But Luke doesn't give in easily. No, sir. His character is all about resistance. He tests Jack at every step, throws his pain at him like rope in a lasso, waiting to see if Jack will finally stop running. Luke's arc is no less powerful than Jack's. He starts off as a man who thinks he doesn't need answers. He's moved on, built his life, closed that chapter. But the truth is, he's built his entire identity around the absence of his father. So when Jack comes back, older, quieter, and clearly wrestling with guilt, Luke's entire emotional framework starts to crack. Watching him try to keep that wall up, even as he's tempted to tear it down, is gripping. He's not just fighting his dad, he's fighting himself. Their relationship, it's a masterclass in slow-burning emotional tension. There's no, I forgive you, moment wrapped in tears and music. Nope. This bond is rebuilt through silence, awkward pauses, and small gestures. A nod, a shared beer, a memory they don't argue about. And when those moments finally come, when Jack finally lets his guard down, and Luke allows a flicker of vulnerability to show, it hits harder than any rodeo fall. Then there's Mary, Jack's old flame and Luke's mother. She could have been a side note, but no. She's a storm in a denim jacket. She brings clarity, emotional weight, and a kind of mature wisdom that only comes from surviving years of disappointment. Mary isn't bitter. She's real. She doesn't coddle Jack. She doesn't sugarcoat anything. She's a mirror Jack can't avoid, and while she's clearly been hurt by him, she's not looking to punish him. She's looking for honesty. She wants to know if the man who broke her heart is capable of telling the truth now, not just to her, but to himself. And the dynamic between Jack and Mary is electric, not romantic, but emotionally charged in every way. There's history in every glance. They don't have to say much, you can feel it. Let's not forget Ray, Jack's old rodeo partner and ghost of rodeo's past. Ray is the guy who never left the lifestyle. He's funny, loyal, and absolutely tragic in the most subtle way. He's the version of Jack that could have been, if Jack had never stopped pretending he was still 25. Through Ray, we see what it means to be stuck in time, living off old stories because the future never showed up. And while Ray provides some much-needed comic relief, his character is rich with emotional undertones. His loyalty to Jack is fierce, but even he starts to question whether Jack is truly ready to confront his past or just circling around it like a tired bronco. And don't sleep on the supporting cast. Each minor character in the Last Rodeo feels like they've lived a life off-screen. The grizzled ranch hand who gives Luke advice he didn't ask for. The rodeo announcer who still remembers Jack's last great ride. Even the bartender who pours without asking questions seems to understand the weight Jack's carrying. These characters aren't just there to fill space, they each add color, context, and depth to the emotional terrain of a story. What's so beautiful about the character development in this film is how natural it feels. No one is rushing to change. No one is magically healed by a single gesture. Growth happens in inches, not miles. Relationships are rebuilt in awkward conversations, not grand gestures. Forgiveness is earned through consistency, not apologies. It's a film where emotional transformation happens not with fireworks, but with flickering lanterns in the dark, small lights that guide the way, step by step. So, while The Last Rodeo may advertise itself as a Western drama, don't be fooled. It's not about cowboys. It's about people. People who hurt each other, and then try, however imperfectly, to fix what's broken. People who change not because the story needs them to, but because life has finally forced them to look in the mirror. And in doing so, they don't just change themselves, they change the entire course of a story. Alright, let's go all in, no holding back, because if we're talking about performances in The Last Rodeo, we're talking about a masterclass in acting. This isn't just a cast showing up to say lines and ride horses. This is a group of performers who walk into their roles, lock the door behind them, and throw away the key. What you get isn't just drama, it's realness, grit, soul, and that electric kind of emotional honesty that makes you forget you're watching a movie. These actors don't act like they're feeling things. They feel them, and in doing so, they make us feel them too. Let's saddle up and start with the man of the hour, Jack Bronson. Now, the actor playing Jack doesn't just wear a cowboy hat and scowl at the past. No, he wears regret like a second skin. This guy is walking around with 30 years of bad choices, half-finished apologies, and buried guilt dragging behind him like a rusted chain. And here's the genius of the performance. It's not loud. It's not showy. Jack isn't out here delivering big Oscar-bait monologues. He's quiet, controlled, the kind of performance where the pauses between the lines are doing just as much talking as the words themselves. Watch how he struggles to make eye contact with his son. Watch the way his hand hovers before a handshake, not sure it'll be accepted. The actor doesn't need to explain Jack's backstory. You see it in his body language. You feel it in his breathing. This is a man whose whole life is an apology he's never figured out how to say. And then here comes Luke, Jack's son. Fire to Jack's earth. Where Jack is all pent-up pain, Luke is an emotional earthquake. The actor who plays him brings an intensity that lights up every scene he's in. He doesn't just challenge Jack, he challenges us, the audience, to decide how we feel about this father-son mess. He doesn't want your sympathy, he wants justice. And what's so brilliant is how the actor lets that toughness crumble just slightly in the quiet moments. There's a scene where he finds an old photo of himself with Jack, no dialogue, just a look. A single, sharp breath. And in that instant, the audience knows all that anger, it's built on a foundation of hope. And that kind of emotional layering, that's not something you fake. That's something you live on screen. Then there's Mary, the glue that used to hold this family together and maybe, just maybe, still does. And let me tell you, the actress here doesn't just play Mary, she owns her. She walks into every scene like she's already done this emotional rodeo 100 times, and she's not afraid to do it again. She's strong but not hardened. She's tired but not bitter. Her scenes with Jack are like watching two people who know exactly where the wounds are and how to press on them without even trying. There's history in her eyes. When she talks to Jack, it's not just words, it's memory. And when she looks at Luke, you see the complexity of a mother trying to protect her son while also wanting to see some version of reconciliation. The actress brings balance, depth, and dignity to a role that could have easily been sidelined. Instead, she becomes the emotional backbone of the film. Now let's take a moment to celebrate Ray, Jack's old rodeo partner and the unexpected emotional sniper of this film. The actor playing Ray is working on a whole other level. On the surface, he's all jokes, stories, and nostalgia. The kind of guy who still wears his rodeo belt buckle like a badge of honor. But beneath the charm, there's the subtle ache, like he knows the glory days are gone, but he's too proud to admit it out loud. And when he finally lets that guard drop, even for a second, it's devastating. There's a scene, just two old friends sitting on a truck bed, talking about nothing and everything, and the way Ray delivers a line about the rides that hurt the most being the ones you didn't see coming. You feel it in your chest. He's not a sidekick. He's a mirror to what Jack could have become if he never left the arena, physically or emotionally. Even the smallest roles are cast with care. The bartender who doesn't ask questions, but always pours with a knowing glance. The rodeo announcer who still remembers Jack's last ride. The teenage kid in the arena who looks at Jack like he's a walking legend, even when Jack doesn't believe it himself. These aren't just filler characters. The actors behind them commit. They live in this dusty, bittersweet world. They add texture, depth, and that lived-in feeling that makes the whole story feel like it could be unfolding just down the road in a town you've driven through once and never forgotten. What makes all of these performances so powerful isn't just the acting chops, it's the chemistry. This cast doesn't feel like a group of people pretending to have history. They feel like people who have history. Every glance, every awkward silence, every smile that fades too quickly, they all tell you that these characters have been carrying the weight of each other for years. That's not something you can write into a script. It's something actors bring to a story when they believe in it. There's no weak link in The Last Rodeo. No phoned-in moments. No characters that feel half-baked or hollow. Every actor shows up, digs deep, and delivers performances that resonate long after the dust settles. This film doesn't just rely on plot or scenery, it leans hard on its performers. And lucky for us, they ride like champions. All right, buckle up, because when it comes to the direction of The Last Rodeo, we're diving deep into a masterclass of cinematic craftsmanship. The director here isn't just a traffic cop waving the camera around. They're the visionary captain steering this entire emotional voyage with a steady, confident hand. Every element of the film feels purposefully designed to pull you inside the dusty, complicated world they've built. The tone, the mood, the storytelling rhythm, it all comes together like the notes of a well-played guitar riff that you didn't know was stuck in your head until it suddenly hits you full force. First off, the tone. It's the foundation the director builds everything else on. The Last Rodeo has this wonderful balance. It's gritty, raw, and realistic, but never sinks into bleakness or melodrama. The director nails the emotional heartbeat of the story by steering away from cliches and instead focusing on the subtle complexities of human connection, regret, and hope. The film feels lived in, with a texture so authentic you can practically smell the leather of the boots and feel the heat of the late afternoon sun on your skin. The director isn't interested in spectacle here. They want you to feel like you've stepped into a story that's been simmering for years, something personal and painfully true. Now let's talk shot composition, because this is where the director's eye really shines. The visuals are far from random or purely functional. They're like brush strokes on a canvas that paint mood and meaning. Wide, expansive shots of barren landscapes and endless horizons aren't just pretty backdrops, they're metaphors for the emotional distance between characters. The camera lingers on those open spaces, making you feel the loneliness and isolation pressing in on Jack and Luke. Then, just as masterfully, the director zooms in for those close-ups where every wrinkle, every flicker of the eye, every breath becomes a language of its own. You watch characters struggle, hesitate, and confront their demons, all without needing a word. The direction here proves that sometimes silence and stillness speak louder than dialogue. The pacing, too, is a deliberate rhythm that the director commands like a conductor leading an orchestra. The story unfolds slowly, purposefully. It's like a slow burn that pulls you in deeper and deeper, making sure you soak up every moment, every tension-filled pause. You get the sense that the director is fully aware that real life isn't a race, and neither is the story. There's patience in the way scenes breathe and flow, no rush, no wasted movement, just a carefully measured build-up to the emotional crescendo. When the big moments come, they hit with all the weight of years of build-up, and you don't see them coming until you're already swept up in the impact. An absolutely fascinating aspect of the direction is how it uses contrast and visual symbolism to deepen the storytelling. The director peppers the film with little visual juxtapositions, the new and the old, past and present, innocence and experience. For example, there might be a shot of a dusty, battered old rodeo poster peeling off a wall, immediately followed by a sleek, modern smartphone buzzing on a table. These small details aren't just eye candy, they reinforce the characters' struggles to reconcile their past with their present. The director's choice to weave these elements subtly into the fabric of the film shows a deep understanding of how visuals can tell stories just as powerfully as words. Lighting and color choices also fall under the director's meticulous control. The film alternates between warm, golden hour tones that evoke nostalgia and hope, and cooler, muted palettes that reflect isolation and inner turmoil. This interplay of light and shadow acts like an emotional roadmap, guiding the audience through the highs and lows of the narrative without ever needing a single line of exposition. It's a quiet storytelling technique that the director wields like a secret weapon. Let's not forget the use of silence. The director has a fearless approach to quiet moments, those pauses where nothing happens except the characters sitting in the tension of their own emotions. These silences are risky. They demand the audience's full attention and trust. But here, they're used brilliantly. Rather than filling every gap with music or chatter, the director lets the space breathe, making the emotional beats land harder. Those moments give weight and gravity to the story, making it feel more like an intimate conversation than a performance. Another subtle but powerful directorial choice is the choreography of the actors within the frame. The director doesn't just film performances, they stage them. The physical placement of characters, how they move around a room or interact with their environment, speaks volumes. For example, scenes where Jack and Luke are in the same space but separated by a door or a table visually represent their emotional distance. Conversely, when characters finally come together in close proximity, it's a visual signal that walls are breaking down. This kind of spatial storytelling adds a whole new layer to the narrative, and it's a testament to the director's skill at thinking beyond just the script. And here's the thing, the director's influence is felt in the chemistry that crackles between the actors. Great performances need a strong directorial vision to flourish, and it's clear this director created an environment where the cast could take risks, find vulnerability, and connect deeply. Scenes feel unscripted and organic, as if the characters could spill off the screen into real life. That kind of trust between director and cast doesn't happen by accident, it's carefully nurtured. The director's ability to guide performances without suffocating them is a delicate balancing act that elevates the entire film. Also worth noting is how the director uses narrative structure to keep the story engaging. The film doesn't rush through the plot or rely on heavy exposition. Instead, the director unfolds the story like a slow reveal, peeling back layers of the past and present in a way that keeps you hooked without overwhelming you. Flashbacks or memory sequences, if used, are woven seamlessly into the flow, never jarring or disruptive. It's like the director hands you puzzle pieces one at a time and invites you to put them together alongside the characters. In the end, the director of The Last Rodeo isn't just guiding a movie, they're crafting an experience. They take a story about family, regret, and redemption and shape it into something cinematic and profound. The choices they make, whether in tone, visuals, pacing, or actor direction, come together in perfect harmony to create a film that sticks with you long after the screen goes dark. It's a reminder that great directing isn't about showboating, it's about serving the story, respecting the audience, and inviting us to feel something real. And in The Last Rodeo, that invitation is impossible to refuse. All right, let's really sink our teeth into the cinematography of The Last Rodeo, because this is where the film's visual storytelling absolutely steals the show and drags you headfirst into its dusty, emotionally charged world. The cinematographer here isn't just clicking the camera's shutter or capturing actors on screen. They're painting a visceral, moving portrait that pulls you into the story's heart with every frame. This film's visuals don't just support the narrative, they amplify it, wrapping the viewer in atmosphere, tension, and beauty that sometimes say more than dialogue ever could. Starting with the camera angles, there's a deliberate dance happening throughout the film. Wide shots are a cornerstone, these expansive vistas of endless plains, open highways, and barren rodeo grounds don't just look cinematic, they function as emotional barometers. When the camera pulls way back, you're reminded how small and fragile the characters are in this vast, uncaring landscape. This sense of scale visually emphasizes isolation, the distance between characters, and the daunting weight of the past they carry. It's like the horizon itself is a looming character, stretching infinitely, challenging them to either escape or confront what's behind them. Then, the cinematographer expertly flips the script with intense close-ups, zooming in so tight on faces that every twitch, every flicker of a tear, every tightening of the jaw feels raw and palpable. These close-ups don't just capture expressions, they invite the audience into an intimate emotional exchange, breaking down barriers between viewer and character. You don't just see Jack or Luke, you feel their hesitation, their anger, their vulnerability, as if you're right there in the room breathing the same dusty air. Lighting is nothing short of a visual storyteller in its own right. The film revels in naturalistic light that bends and shifts with the narrative's mood. Golden hour lighting, those soft, honeyed hues just before sunset, bathe key scenes in a warm glow that speaks to nostalgia, hope, and fleeting moments of peace. It's almost like the sun itself is wrapping the characters in a bittersweet embrace, reminding them, and us, of what once was or could have been. On the flip side, when darker themes come to the forefront, grief, anger, and regret, the lighting shifts to harsher, colder tones. Shadows grow longer and deeper, corners of rooms slip into darkness, and faces are half hidden in gloom, visually reinforcing the emotional weight pressing down on the characters. The framing throughout the film is a masterclass in subtle storytelling. The cinematographer and director clearly work in perfect sync to use space within each shot to reveal relationships and emotional states. There are countless instances where characters are physically separated by barriers, a cracked barn door, a fence, a window pane, literally placing distance between them on screen, while metaphorically showcasing the emotional walls they've built. Those frames are so rich with subtext that you could pause the film and study them like art, unpacking layers of meaning. And when characters start to bridge those divides, the frames tighten, bringing them physically closer in the shot, visually signaling shifts in connection, vulnerability, or reconciliation. One particular shot stands out, a moment where Jack and Luke stand on opposite sides of a dusty barn door, framed perfectly to illustrate both their closeness and their chasm of unspoken pain. Then there are those moments of pure cinematic poetry, the kind of shots that linger in your mind and heart long after the film ends. A slow-motion sequence of a rodeo bull thrashing beneath a blazing sunset, dust swirling around like a storm of memories. A delicate close-up of a weathered hand tracing the faded edges of an old photograph, the camera holding just long enough to let the weight of memory and loss settle on the screen. These aren't just beautiful visuals, they're emotional anchors, moments where cinematography transcends decoration and becomes a language all its own. Perspective is another tool the cinematography wields with precision. Low-angle shots give certain characters an imposing, larger-than-life aura, reflecting moments of pride, stubbornness, or authority. High-angle shots, by contrast, can make characters look small, vulnerable, or overwhelmed, visually communicating their internal struggles without a single word. Depth of field is played with too. Shallow focus isolates characters, trapping them in their thoughts or pain, while deeper focus throws their surroundings into sharp relief, showing how the outside world encroaches on their personal battles. What's truly impressive is the cinematographer's restraint and finesse. There's no heavy-handedness here. Instead, every visual choice serves the story and mood, never overwhelming it. Natural elements like dust, sunlight filtering through weathered windows, and the shifting sky are woven into the imagery with care, adding texture and meaning without shouting for attention. These details pull you in, make you feel the environment, and heighten the emotional resonance of the scenes. Silence and pacing in the visuals also matter hugely. In quieter, more contemplative moments, the camera slows down, lingering on small details, a rustling curtain, a flicker of emotion across a face, that draw you deeper into the characters' inner lives. In moments of tension, the cinematography tightens and darkens, squeezing the frame and your heart simultaneously until you're right there, feeling the stress, the anticipation, the looming conflict. One of the best things about the cinematography in The Last Rodeo is how it effortlessly ties together the story's themes and emotions through its visual language. The interplay of light and shadow echoes the push and pull between hope and regret. The framing of characters within the vast landscapes mirrors their internal struggles with isolation and connection. And the way the camera moves, sometimes steady and contemplative, other times quick and urgent, mirrors the shifting pace of their journey toward understanding and healing. In the end, the cinematography of The Last Rodeo isn't just about making the movie look good. It's about making you feel every dusty breath, every aching glance, every quiet heartbreak. It's about capturing the untold stories that live in the spaces between words. Watching this film is like stepping into a world where the camera doesn't just observe, it invites you to experience the story with all your senses. And that, my friend, is where the real magic of this film's cinematography lies. Let's dive even deeper into the editing and pacing of The Last Rodeo, because this is where the film's rhythm really comes alive and becomes a character in its own right. Editing is often the invisible art, the cuts and transitions you don't notice but that shape how you experience the story on a fundamental level. In The Last Rodeo, the editors wield this power with precision, crafting a flow that pulls you in and carries you effortlessly through the emotional highs and lows, the tension and release, the calm and chaos of a story. Right from the opening moments, the editing establishes a tempo that feels intentional and immersive. It's like the film breathes with a steady rhythm, slow enough to let you soak in the mood and the world, but never so slow that you start checking your watch. There's a patient quality to the cuts early on. Scenes unfold at a natural pace, allowing the audience to settle into the dusty, rugged environment of the rodeo world. This patience is crucial because it sets the tone and builds emotional groundwork. You get to linger on the cracked leather of a saddle, the dust swirling in the sunlight, or the worn hands of a cowboy as they tighten a rope. These moments might seem small, but they're loaded with storytelling, and the editing respects that by giving them space rather than rushing past. Then, as the narrative unfolds and the stakes start to rise, the editing shifts gears seamlessly. When tension creeps in, whether through a confrontation between characters or the unpredictable danger of a rodeo ride, the cuts become tighter and more urgent. The pacing speeds up just enough to create a sense of adrenaline without tipping into chaos. Quick crosscuts between the rider gripping the bull, the anxious crowd, and the watchful eyes of family and rivals keep you on edge, your heart racing along with the action. The editors know exactly when to speed up and when to slow down, creating a pulse that matches the emotional landscape of each scene. One of the most impressive aspects of the editing in The Last Rodeo is how it handles the intertwining of past and present. The film relies on flashbacks and memories to reveal the backstory and emotional baggage the characters carry, but these aren't just slapped in haphazardly. Instead, the editors use creative transitions that feel almost poetic. Sometimes a sound bridges two different times, or a visual element like a flickering light or a passing shadow gently guides you into a memory. This weaving of timelines is smooth and subtle, allowing the story to unfold in layers without ever feeling confusing or jarring. You always know where you are in the story, and the past and present bounce off each other to deepen your understanding of the characters' motivations and regrets. The pacing also shines in how it balances moments of high drama with quieter, introspective beats. After an intense scene, maybe a heated argument or a dangerous rodeo ride, the film often cuts to something more subdued, a silent shot of a character alone, a lingering glance, or the sound of wind rustling through the grass. These slower moments aren't filler, they're essential pauses that let the emotional weight of what just happened sink in. The editing here acts like a musical rest, giving you a chance to catch your breath and reflect. It's this ebb and flow between tension and release, action and reflection, that makes the pacing feel natural and deeply engaging. Transitions themselves deserve a spotlight because they're anything but ordinary. The editors use them not only to move the story along, but to add layers of meaning. A door closing might cut to a memory of a childhood home, or the echo of a horse's hoofbeat might segue into a tense conversation about legacy. These small, clever connections turn the editing into a storytelling device, enriching the narrative without slowing it down. They're like little visual and auditory breadcrumbs that invite the audience to piece together the emotional puzzle. The action sequences are another playground for editing mastery. Rodeo scenes could easily become overwhelming or disorienting, but here, the cuts are sharp and purposeful. Each shot is chosen to maximize impact, showing just enough of the bull's bucking, the rider's grip, and the crowd's reaction to build suspense without overloading the senses. The rhythm during these moments is almost choreographed, accelerating to a crescendo as danger peaks, then easing off as relief washes over the characters. This control over pacing makes the action visceral and exhilarating, but also deeply connected to the characters' personal stakes. Subtle yet important is how the editing conveys the passage of time throughout the film. There are moments where days, weeks, or even years seem to slip by in a blink, but thanks to thoughtful editing choices, like montages, changes in lighting, or visual cues, the timeline never feels confusing. Instead, you feel the flow of time naturally as part of the characters' journeys. These transitions respect the story's emotional continuity, so you understand how the past shapes the present without ever feeling like you're lost in the chronology. What really makes the editing and pacing stand out is how they shape the film's emotional roller coaster. The rhythm of cuts and scene lengths directly influences how you feel about what's happening on screen. When characters are caught in moments of doubt or heartbreak, the editing slows, inviting empathy and reflection. When the narrative surges with conflict or revelation, the cuts snap quicker, ramping up excitement and tension. It's a delicate balance, but the film hits it with grace. Overall, the editing creates a journey that feels both organic and captivating. It's like the film's pulse. You don't consciously notice it, but it guides your experience, drawing you in, heightening emotions, and helping you ride the waves of the story's drama. Watching The Last Rodeo feels less like watching a movie and more like living a story, with every cut and transition carefully crafted to keep you hooked, engaged, and emotionally invested from start to finish. The soundtrack and score of The Last Rodeo don't just sit quietly in the background, they actively shape the emotional currents of the film, pulling you deeper into its world with every note. From the moment the opening credits roll, the music sets a mood that feels both intimate and expansive, like the wide-open plains themselves. It's not just about adding sound. This soundtrack breathes life into the story, coloring the emotions and enriching the atmosphere in ways that dialogue and visuals alone could never achieve. What really stands out about the music is its incredible versatility. The composer has crafted a score that shifts effortlessly with the narrative, moving through a range of emotions that mirror the characters' journeys. When the story takes a quieter, more reflective turn, the music follows suit with gentle, understated melodies. Imagine soft acoustic guitar picking, slow piano notes, or a mournful harmonica that seems to echo the loneliness and longing of the characters. These tender moments invite you to lean in, to feel the weight of memories and regrets hanging in the air. They don't overwhelm or distract, they enhance, creating a space for the audience to connect on a deeper emotional level. Then there are the moments when the film's tension spikes, the thrill of a bull ride, the heat of a confrontation, the uncertainty of a character's fate. Here, the score intensifies, moving into bolder, more dynamic territory. Rhythms become sharper, drums kick in with a driving pulse, and layers of strings or electric guitars swell to build excitement and suspense. The music practically pounds alongside the characters' racing hearts, making you feel the adrenaline and danger as if you were right there in the arena. The shift in energy is so well-timed that it feels completely natural, pulling you further into the story's momentum without ever becoming overbearing. One of the masterstrokes of the soundtrack is its use of recurring musical motifs, small, memorable themes or phrases that represent particular characters, emotions, or ideas. These motifs act like emotional bookmarks, appearing and reappearing throughout the film to create a sense of cohesion and narrative depth. For example, a soft, haunting melody might play whenever the protagonist reflects on a past loss, creating a thread of melancholy that weaves through different scenes and links them emotionally. These musical callbacks help to unify the story, making the emotional arcs feel connected and resonant rather than fragmented. Another fascinating aspect of the score is how it plays with silence and restraint. Instead of filling every moment with music, the composer and sound team deliberately leave space for natural sounds, the crunch of boots on gravel, the creak of saddles, the distant roar of the crowd. This thoughtful use of silence makes the music's arrival all the more powerful. When a key emotional beat or plot twist happens, the music swoops in to heighten the impact, and because the soundtrack hasn't been constantly demanding your attention, these moments hit harder. It's like a conversation. Sometimes you speak, sometimes you listen, and the music respects that balance, enhancing the storytelling without overshadowing it. Stylistically, the soundtrack is a compelling blend of traditional and modern elements. It pulls from classic Western and country influences, twangy guitars, steady drum beats, and heartfelt vocal lines, grounding the film firmly in its rodeo setting. But layered on top are contemporary sounds, subtle electronic textures, orchestral swells, and atmospheric effects that add a fresh, cinematic dimension. This combination creates a soundscape that feels authentic yet innovative, capturing both the rough edges of the rodeo world and the complex emotional undercurrents running through the characters. The film also cleverly uses diegetic music, songs that the characters actually hear within their world, to add realism and texture. Whether it's a dusty bar playing a country tune or a roadside radio blasting classic rock, these moments anchor the story in a tangible time and place. These songs often carry emotional weight, underscoring key scenes with familiar sounds that resonate beyond the screen. They help paint a fuller picture of the characters' lives and the culture they inhabit, making the world feel lived in and real. One of the most impressive things about the soundtrack is how seamlessly it integrates with the film's pacing and storytelling. The music isn't an afterthought or a gimmick. It's woven tightly into the narrative fabric, responding to shifts in tone and character emotion with sensitivity and intelligence. Whether it's the subtle swell of strings accompanying a quiet, vulnerable moment, or the energetic pulse of percussion driving an action sequence, the soundtrack amplifies the story without ever competing for attention. It's a perfect marriage of sound and picture. This thoughtful approach extends to the sound design as a whole, where music and ambient noise coexist in harmony. The rustling wind, the pounding hooves, the distant calls of the crowd, They all blend with the score to create an immersive soundscape that transports you right into the heart of the rodeo and the characters' struggles. The balance of these elements makes the film's world feel vivid and alive, heightening the emotional stakes without overwhelming your senses. Overall, the soundtrack and score of The Last Rodeo don't just support the film, they elevate it, adding layers of emotional nuance and atmosphere that make every scene richer and more impactful. From the gentle, haunting melodies to the powerful, adrenaline-fueled crescendos, the music guides your feelings and connects you to the story's soul. It's a sonic journey as compelling and textured as the narrative itself, making the entire viewing experience more immersive, memorable, and deeply affecting. The Last Rodeo is much more than a high-stakes, adrenaline-fueled ride. It's a thoughtful exploration of some deeply resonant themes that quietly shape the emotional core of the film. From the very start, it invites the audience to look beyond the spectacle of bull riding and into the complex, often painful human stories woven beneath the dust and dirt of the rodeo world. These themes aren't just decorative, they're the heartbeat of the film, adding layers of meaning that stick with you long after the last scene fades. One of the central themes running through The Last Rodeo is legacy and the idea of what we leave behind, not just in trophies or records, but in the memories and influences we imprint on others. The protagonist's journey revolves around coming to terms with their past, which is littered with both triumphs and regrets. The film smartly avoids cliches by showing legacy as a double-edged sword. It's a source of pride and identity, but also a burden and source of conflict. This is seen in how the character struggles with expectations, both self-imposed and from family or community, and the pressure to live up to a name or tradition. It's an exploration of how the past can both define and confine us, and the difficult choices involved in breaking free or embracing it fully. Closely tied to legacy is the theme of resilience, which pulses throughout the film like the relentless rhythm of a rodeo heartbeat. The Last Rodeo portrays resilience in its rawest form, not just as toughness or bravado, but as an emotional and psychological endurance that's often invisible but just as powerful. The protagonist's ability to rise after a fall, literally and figuratively, is mirrored by the supporting characters, each facing their own internal battles and setbacks. The film shines a light on the grit it takes to keep moving forward despite pain, failure, and uncertainty. But what makes it compelling is that this resilience isn't glamorized. It's messy, fraught with doubt and fear, which makes it feel honest and relatable. Another compelling theme is identity and self-worth, especially in a world like rodeo where success is often measured in wins, physical prowess, and public reputation. The film delves into the tension between external validation and internal fulfillment, asking what it truly means to be successful or worthy. The characters grapple with insecurities and the fear that their value is tied only to their performance or how others see them. This struggle adds emotional depth, revealing moments of vulnerability beneath the tough exterior. The story suggests that real strength comes from self-acceptance and authenticity rather than the applause or accolades. Forgiveness and reconciliation also weave subtly through the narrative, bringing a hopeful but realistic tone. The protagonist's journey isn't just about winning a final rodeo, but about coming to terms with past mistakes, both their own and those of others, and finding a way to move forward without carrying the heavy baggage of resentment or guilt. These themes play out in intimate, often quiet moments where characters confront their fears and grudges, sometimes surprising themselves with their capacity to heal. It's a mature, nuanced take on redemption that avoids melodrama, instead offering heartfelt, believable growth. The film further explores the idea of community and belonging, showing that rodeo is more than just a sport, it's a culture and a family. There's a sense of camaraderie and shared history that ties the characters together, even as rivalries and personal conflicts add complexity. The rodeo community is portrayed as both a support system and a crucible with its own rules, loyalties, and tensions. This theme adds richness to the film's world-building and helps explain the characters' motivations and emotional ties. It's a celebration of connection, but one that acknowledges the messiness and challenges inherent in any close-knit group. A fascinating subtext running through the film is the passage of time and the challenge of aging, particularly in a field that prizes youth, strength, and speed. The Last Rodeo confronts the fear of becoming obsolete and the desire to prove that worth isn't erased by age. This theme is especially poignant as the protagonist faces the twilight of their career and wrestles with questions about purpose and meaning beyond physical achievement. The film explores how aging brings new perspectives and wisdom, even as it demands a reckoning with limits. It's a thoughtful look at life seasons and the evolution of identity over time. What makes these themes stand out is how organically they grow from the characters and plot rather than feeling like imposed messages. The film trusts its audience to pick up on the nuances and reflect on these ideas without spoon-feeding or moralizing. The themes emerge naturally from the story's conflicts and relationships, making them feel authentic and deeply human. Ultimately, The Last Rodeo is a layered narrative that balances action and excitement with emotional depth and intellectual engagement. Its themes of legacy, resilience, identity, forgiveness, community, and aging create a rich tapestry that invites viewers to reflect on their own lives and struggles. It's a film that entertains but also lingers in the mind, challenging you to think about what really matters when the dust settles and the arena lights dim. When diving deeper into the visual effects and CGI of The Last Rodeo, it becomes clear that the film's creators struck a delicate and impressive balance between practical, on-set effects and carefully crafted digital enhancements. This balance is key because rodeo, as a sport, thrives on its gritty, tangible reality, the pounding hooves, the dust swirling in the air, the raw physicality of the bull and rider locked in a fierce battle. Too much CGI could easily tip the scale into something artificial or over the top, but here, the effects team respects the world they're portraying, choosing to use technology as a subtle enhancer rather than a flashy spectacle. Let's start with the practical effects, which are the backbone of the film's visual realism. The crew clearly prioritize authentic textures and movements. There's an unmistakable tactile quality in every frame where dust kicks up from the dirt, sweat glistens on the riders' foreheads, and leather creaks under strain. These details might seem small, but they add immense credibility to the film's atmosphere. Watching the bulls charge and buck isn't just about the thrill. It's about feeling the power and unpredictability of these animals, something that practical effects capture far better than any digital stand-in. The way the riders grip, stumble, and sometimes fall has a rawness that speaks to real physical risk, heightening the tension in a way CGI can only attempt to mimic. On the flip side, the CGI in The Last Rodeo is anything but distracting or overdone. In fact, it plays a critical supporting role, stepping in exactly where practical effects can't safely go. For example, some of the more dangerous or physically impossible bull movements are digitally enhanced to amp up the sense of danger without compromising the safety of the stunt performers. The digital work here is impressively seamless. The bulls look natural, their motions fluid and unpredictable, which keeps the audience's adrenaline pumping. The CGI doesn't shout, "Look at me." Instead, it quietly ups the stakes, blending so well with the live-action footage that you might not even notice it's there. Beyond the action, CGI is cleverly used to build the rodeo's environment. The sweeping wide shots of packed stadiums, often digitally populated to fill the arena with energetic crowds, add a sense of scale and excitement. What's remarkable is how well these digital crowds mimic real human movement and reaction. No clunky or repetitive animations here. This digital crowd serves to anchor the rodeo as a living, breathing event, rather than an empty set, adding layers of energy and realism without ever feeling artificial. Lighting is another area where visual effects and CGI play a significant role. The film uses digital techniques to amplify natural lighting conditions, like the golden hour sun casting long shadows over the dusty arena or the stark, cold illumination of floodlights at night. These subtle enhancements deepen the mood and atmosphere, making the scenes visually striking and emotionally resonant. When tension spikes during a ride, the interplay of shadows and light feels almost like a character itself, creating an immersive sensory experience that pulls the viewer further into the story. The filmmakers also smartly deploy CGI to underscore emotional moments. For instance, the visual focus might soften around a character during a quiet reflective scene, or the edges of the frame darken to mirror their internal struggle. These effects are used sparingly but with great effect, adding a cinematic depth that helps communicate what words cannot. They enhance the emotional weight without ever feeling gimmicky or distracting, demonstrating a refined use of digital tools in storytelling. It's worth mentioning that the film's visual effects team has clearly worked closely with the stunt coordinators and cinematographers to ensure a cohesive look and feel. This collaboration means that practical stunts and CGI enhancements are choreographed and framed in ways that maximize impact while maintaining visual consistency. The result is a fluid visual narrative where every fall, ride, and crowd reaction feels part of one seamless whole. Another layer of sophistication comes from the attention to detail and the small digital touches that enrich the rodeo environment. Subtle CGI dust clouds swirling realistically around booths, the flicker of light on metal buckles, or the gentle movement of flags and banners all add a texture that deepens immersion. These tiny details might go unnoticed consciously, but they make the setting feel alive and lived in, heightening the viewer's sensory experience. The film also avoids the common trap of overusing slow motion or exaggerated effects during key action scenes. Instead, it trusts the intensity of the real footage, using CGI to refine and complement rather than dominate. This restraint keeps the focus where it belongs, on the characters and their physical and emotional journeys, while still delivering thrilling visual moments. Lastly, the balance of practical and digital effects shows a respect for the rodeo's authentic spirit. The visual effects never replace the hard work of capturing real stunts and performances, they support and elevate them. This approach preserves the heart-pounding tension and emotional stakes that make the film compelling, ensuring that audiences stay fully immersed in this rugged, adrenaline-fueled world. In the end, The Last Rodeo's visual effects and CGI form a symbiotic relationship with the practical filmmaking elements, creating a film that feels both authentic and cinematic. The effects never overpower the story or pull the viewer out of the experience. Instead, they work quietly and expertly behind the scenes, enhancing the excitement, atmosphere, and emotional texture in a way that's both thrilling and believable. This subtle, well-crafted blend is a key part of what makes the film visually satisfying and deeply engaging from start to finish. When we really dig into the set design and locations of The Last Rodeo, it's impossible not to be impressed by how thoughtfully and meticulously this film builds its world, one that feels authentic, textured, and utterly believable. From the sprawling, dusty rodeo arenas to the quiet, time-worn corners of small-town America, every inch of the environment pulses with life and personality, wrapping the viewer in a setting that's as much a part of the story as the characters themselves. Starting with the rodeo arenas, these aren't just any generic sports venues. The design team put in serious work to capture the heart and soul of rodeo culture, balancing the scale and excitement of the arena with a weathered, lived-in aesthetic that speaks to years of sweat, grit, and raw competition. The wooden fences, scuffed by countless rides and scrapes, the metal gates that creak ominously under pressure, the well-worn dirt floors, all these elements come together to create a tangible sense of place. You can almost hear the pounding of hooves and feel the dust settle in your lungs just by watching. This level of detail helps the audience understand that these aren't just stages for action, they're hallowed grounds for the riders, steeped in tradition and danger. But the film's world extends far beyond the arena itself. The small town and rural environments shown throughout add an extra layer of emotional resonance and realism. The streets lined with cracked sidewalks and flickering neon signs evoke a community that's familiar and unpretentious, but also facing economic challenges and the wear of time. The production design taps into the spirit of these places by including charming yet faded landmarks like old diners with peeling paint, rusted farm equipment in backyards, and dusty pickup trucks that have clearly seen better days. These visuals tell stories of pride, struggle, and perseverance without a single word spoken. It's a world where everyone knows each other's names and histories, and where the rodeo isn't just a sport but a way of life. Inside the characters' homes and other interiors, the set design continues this theme of authenticity. Whether it's the cluttered living room filled with rodeo trophies and faded photographs, or the cramped, utilitarian spaces of a rancher's workshop, every object feels deliberately chosen to deepen our understanding of the people who live there. The homes are cozy but worn, with signs of long-term use, scuffed floors, patched curtains, and well-loved furniture that hint at family legacies and hard-earned memories. The props are especially effective in telling silent stories. A cracked leather saddle on a hook, a faded rodeo poster pinned crookedly on a wall, or a half-empty jar of nails on a workbench all speak, to lives lived on the edge of tradition and survival. What really elevates the set design and locations, though, is the way they interact with the film's themes and characters. The expansive, open rodeo arenas contrast powerfully with the smaller, more confined interiors, visually reflecting the tension between the freedom the characters seek and the responsibilities they carry. This dynamic reinforces the emotional beats of a story, with wide shots evoking possibility and escape, while tight, dimly lit rooms suggest introspection, conflict, or struggle. The physical spaces become extensions of the characters' inner worlds, giving the audience subtle visual clues about their hopes, fears, and dilemmas. The natural landscapes surrounding the town and arenas add another dimension to the film's visual storytelling. Sweeping shots of open plains, golden fields, and endless blue skies don't just provide stunning visuals, they also symbolize freedom, isolation, and the harsh realities of life close to nature. The production makes excellent use of these wide open spaces, reminding viewers that the rodeo is part of a much larger world, one that's beautiful but unforgiving. These landscapes feel almost like silent characters themselves, influencing the mood and pacing of scenes and underscoring the idea that the writers are constantly battling both the bull and the environment. Lighting and weather also play a crucial role in shaping the mood and believability of the settings. Scenes bathed in the warm glow of sunrise or sunset evoke nostalgia and hope, wrapping the characters in a golden, almost magical light. Conversely, overcast skies, sudden downpours, or dusty storms create tension and uncertainty, mirroring the emotional highs and lows of the story. The way the production uses natural elements to heighten atmosphere helps keep the locations feeling fresh, alive, and deeply connected to the narrative's emotional arc. Even the smallest details contribute to the world building in a big way. The way dirt clings to boots, how rope coils neatly on a post, or the creak of an old wooden chair in a quiet kitchen. All these tiny touches add layers of realism and texture. The film clearly pays attention to these details because they make the difference between a setting that feels like a film set and one that feels like a real, breathing community. Another interesting aspect is how the production uses these settings to subtly explore social and cultural dynamics within the rodeo world. The juxtaposition of weathered working-class spaces with flashes of rodeo glamour and celebration, like the sudden burst of lights during an event or the decorated trailers in the parking lot, reflects the complex, sometimes contradictory nature of the characters' lives. They're chasing dreams that are at once thrilling and precarious, and their surroundings reflect that delicate balance. In terms of visual storytelling, the locations are never static or merely decorative. The camera lingers on these spaces, allowing viewers to soak in the details and understand the emotional weight they carry. The sets and locations invite exploration, encouraging the audience to feel the heartbeat of the rodeo community and the rugged landscape that shapes it. This creates a rich sensory experience where every setting feels purposeful and alive. Ultimately, the set design and locations in The Last Rodeo do more than just frame the action. They create a world that feels authentic, emotionally resonant, and visually captivating. The dusty arenas, weathered small towns, and sweeping natural landscapes combine to tell a story of tradition, struggle, and hope in a way that's immersive and deeply engaging. The film's environments don't just serve the narrative, they amplify it, turning every scene into a vivid, textured experience that stays with you long after the credits roll. Diving deeper into the dialogue and script of The Last Rodeo, it becomes clear that the film's writing is a major pillar holding up its entire storytelling structure. The screenplay doesn't just serve as a vehicle for plot progression. It breathes life into the characters and the world they inhabit, turning what could have been simple exchanges into moments rich with personality, tension, and warmth. The more you listen, the more you notice how skillfully the script balances the rough-and-tumble essence of rodeo life with the quieter, often unspoken emotional currents running beneath the surface. One of the standout qualities of the dialogue is its commitment to authenticity without sacrificing accessibility. The film's writers clearly did their homework, incorporating specific rodeo jargon, regional idioms, and colloquialisms that give the conversations a lived-in feel. These phrases pop up naturally in scenes, from casual chats between old friends swapping rodeo stories to tense negotiations and even quiet reflections. But the script avoids alienating viewers who might not be familiar with the rodeo world. It always provides enough context or cues for the audience to grasp the meaning without feeling lost. This makes the dialogue immersive, pulling the viewer into the culture without ever feeling like an insider's lecture. The characters' speech patterns are also finely tuned to their individual personalities, which adds another layer of richness to the script. For example, the grizzled veteran writers have a gruff, no-nonsense way of talking, each sentence often loaded with dry humor or a subtle life lesson. Their dialogue feels like it's been shaped by years of hard living and experience, peppered with wisdom, regrets, and a hint of stubborn pride. On the flip side, the younger characters speak with a mix of fiery enthusiasm, naivety, and sometimes frustration, their dialogue filled with the energy and uncertainty of chasing big dreams. These contrasts create a lively dynamic in conversations, as you watch different generations and worldviews clash, connect, and sometimes collide through their words. The script doesn't shy away from emotional depth either. When the story calls for more intimate moments, the dialogue becomes quieter but no less powerful. There are scenes where characters drop their usual guard, revealing vulnerabilities and regrets with simple, unadorned language that cuts straight to the heart. These moments often arrive after tension-filled exchanges or action-packed sequences, providing a satisfying emotional counterbalance. The writing knows when to use economy, few words packed with heavy meaning, rather than long speeches, trusting the actors and the audience to feel the weight of what's left unsaid. Speaking of actors, the dialogue provides ample room for nuanced delivery and improvisation, which adds a spontaneous, natural feel to the conversations. The characters don't just recite lines, they react, interrupt, and respond in ways that mimic real-life interaction. This liveliness makes the script feel fresh and unpredictable, with a rhythm that ebbs and flows instead of sticking to a rigid pattern. The pauses, overlaps, and quick retorts bring the script alive, letting the emotional undercurrent simmer just beneath the surface. A particularly engaging aspect of the script is how it uses dialogue to deepen relationships and reveal backstory without resorting to exposition dumps. Instead of characters blatantly telling each other, or the audience, their histories, the script allows for subtle hints, teasing details, and indirect references woven into everyday conversation. This approach respects the audience's intelligence and keeps viewers curious, encouraging them to piece together character motivations and past conflicts from seemingly casual remarks or loaded silences. This technique enriches the storytelling and rewards attentive viewers who enjoy reading between the lines. Humor plays a crucial role in the dialogue as well, and it's handled with finesse. The humor is never slapstick or out of place. Rather, it emerges naturally from the characters' personalities and the situations they find themselves in. Whether it's a witty comeback, a dry observation about rodeo life, or a lighthearted jab between friends, these moments of levity provide welcome relief from the film's more intense or dramatic scenes. The script's humor humanizes the characters, making them relatable and likable, and helps to maintain a balanced tone throughout the film. Another interesting layer is how the script uses dialogue to explore and reflect the film's broader themes. Conversations often touch on ideas like legacy, courage, identity, and the tension between tradition and change, but always in ways that feel organic to the characters' lives. Whether through a heated debate over the future of the rodeo, a heartfelt reflection on past mistakes, or an argument about family loyalty, the dialogue serves as a vehicle for these bigger questions without ever becoming preachy or heavy-handed. Instead, the themes emerge naturally from the way the characters communicate, making the story's messages feel earned and grounded. The script also shines in its use of memorable lines that stick with you long after the film ends. Some of these lines have a poetic quality, distilling complex emotions or philosophies into brief, impactful statements. Others capture the rough-and-ready spirit of the rodeo world with sharp, punchy phrases. These memorable moments aren't just clever writing, they become touchstones that help define the film's identity and emotional core. They can be motivational, bittersweet, or downright funny, and they provide the kind of quotable material that fans love to revisit. Additionally, the dialogue carefully balances tension and release, driving the narrative forward without feeling mechanical. Arguments crackle with energy, but also reveal hidden fears and desires. Reconciliations feel earned and meaningful because of the careful build-up in conversations. The back and forth between characters is never static, it twists and turns, full of surprises that keep the audience hooked. The script's pacing and dialogue mirrors the film's overall rhythm, alternating between fast exchanges that mimic adrenaline-fueled rodeo action and slower, more reflective conversations that allow for emotional processing. What also stands out is the way the script respects silence and pauses. Sometimes what's not said is just as important as the words spoken. The film uses quiet moments between characters to convey tension, hesitation, or unspoken understanding, relying on the actors' performances and the visual context to fill in the blanks. This restraint adds sophistication to the writing, proving that the script knows how to step back and let the story breathe rather than crowding every scene with dialogue. Finally, the language itself, the word choice, sentence rhythm, and tone, feels deliberately tailored to match the film's gritty, heartfelt vibe. It's a blend of straightforwardness and subtlety, mixing rough edges with moments of lyricism. This nuanced writing style gives the dialogue a texture that feels both raw and polished, fitting the rodeo setting and the emotional complexity of the story. The characters' voices sound distinct and memorable, creating a rich verbal tapestry that complements the film's visual and emotional storytelling. In summary, the dialogue and script of The Last Rodeo are much more than just functional tools to tell the story. When it comes to social and cultural commentary, The Last Rodeo surprises you by weaving some pretty thoughtful reflections right into its fabric without ever feeling like it's lecturing or preaching. The film dives into the world of rodeo, a tradition steeped in history, but it uses that setting to explore much bigger, timely conversations about identity, community, and change in today's world. These themes aren't just slapped on the surface, they ripple through the story in a way that feels natural and grounded in the characters' lives and struggles. One of the most interesting things about the film's social commentary is how it tackles the tension between preserving tradition and adapting to modern realities. The rodeo isn't just a backdrop here. It symbolizes a way of life that's under pressure from changing cultural values, economic challenges, and shifting social norms. Through the characters, especially the older generation clinging to the past and the younger ones pushing for progress, the film captures a very real cultural conversation happening in many communities today. This push and pull creates an authentic sense of conflict that feels deeply relevant, especially in a time when many traditions face questions about their place in a rapidly evolving society. The film also touches on themes of economic hardship and resilience without making it feel like a social issue documentary. Instead, you see these challenges through the lived experiences of the characters, the struggle to make ends meet, the sacrifices made to keep dreams alive, and the community's reliance on a sport that's both passion and livelihood. This approach humanizes larger economic realities, making them relatable rather than abstract or distant. It's a reminder that behind every competition and celebration, there's often a tough grind happening behind the scenes. Cultural identity and belonging are other threads the film skillfully explores. The rodeo culture itself is portrayed with a mix of pride, complexity, and nuance. You get a sense of how deeply this lifestyle shapes people's identities, not just as athletes or performers, but as members of tight-knit communities with shared histories and values. The film shows how this identity can be both a source of strength and a source of conflict, especially when individuals start questioning where they fit in or how much of the past they want to carry forward. This exploration adds layers of emotional depth and cultural insight that enrich the story. The way The Last Rodeo handles sensitive topics is particularly impressive. It doesn't shy away from the physical risks and hardships of rodeo life, nor does it ignore the emotional toll these take on individuals and families. Yet, it approaches these issues with empathy and nuance rather than sensationalism. You feel the weight of these realities alongside the characters, which grounds the film's social commentary in genuine human experience rather than abstract debates. One of the subtler but powerful cultural commentaries is about gender roles within this traditionally male-dominated sport. The film includes strong female characters who challenge the old stereotypes and expectations, adding a fresh perspective to the rodeo narrative. This inclusion feels organic to the story rather than forced, reflecting ongoing cultural conversations about representation and equality. It highlights how traditions evolve not just through external pressures, but through the courage and vision of individuals within the community. The film also shines a light on the idea of legacy, what we inherit from the past, and what we choose to pass on. This theme runs deeper than just family dynamics. It's about cultural legacy and how communities preserve or transform their stories in the face of change. The Last Rodeo explores this in a way that feels personal and universal, connecting the rodeo world to broader questions about memory, identity, and progress. Another interesting aspect is how the film reflects on the concept of community support and solidarity. The rodeo circuit is depicted not just as a competition, but as a network of people who rely on each other through thick and thin. This sense of communal resilience becomes a subtle commentary on how modern society often loses sight of close-knit bonds and the value of shared struggles and celebrations. It's a quiet but powerful message about the strength found in connection and tradition. The cultural details sprinkled throughout the film, from the music and language to the costumes and rituals, also serve to immerse the audience in this unique world. These elements aren't just for flavor, they contribute to the film's commentary by showing how culture is lived and experienced daily. This attention to detail respects the community portrayed and invites viewers to appreciate its richness beyond stereotypes or surface impressions. Importantly, The Last Rodeo manages all this social and cultural commentary while still being entertaining and emotionally engaging. The messages don't overshadow the story or the characters. They're part of a texture, adding depth and resonance without ever slowing the pace or dampening the fun. This balance is tricky, but the film pulls it off by trusting its audience to pick up on these layers naturally. So, whether it's exploring economic struggles, gender dynamics, generational divides, or cultural identity, The Last Rodeo weaves its social commentary into the narrative fabric with care and intelligence. It invites viewers to think about bigger issues through the lens of a very specific and vibrant community, making the story not just a rodeo tale but a meaningful reflection on change, tradition, and belonging in today's world. Let's take audience engagement with The Last Rodeo and really stretch it out, because this film doesn't just ask for your attention. It demands your heart, your mind, and sometimes your breath. From the moment the opening scenes roll, you're plunged into a world pulsing with raw emotion and high stakes, and the film skillfully pulls you in with a magnetic mix of adrenaline, warmth, and relatability that's hard to shake off. This isn't just another sports drama, it's an immersive experience that cleverly balances pulse-pounding action with moments that invite genuine reflection and connection. Think about those scenes where the tension is so thick you can almost feel the dust flying, bulls charging, crowds roaring, the protagonist battling not just the animal but inner doubts and external pressures. These adrenaline-fueled moments don't just excite, they draw you into the visceral thrill of the rodeo, making you almost hold your breath alongside the rider. The way the film builds and releases this tension is like a roller coaster ride, and the audience is strapped in tight, eyes wide, heart racing. But it's not all about thrills. Between these peaks, the film drops down into quiet, intimate spaces where emotions take center stage, creating a rhythm that keeps you emotionally invested without ever feeling overwhelmed. What really amplifies engagement is the film's deep investment in its characters' humanity. You don't just watch the riders perform feats of daring. You get a real sense of who they are beneath the helmets and boots. Their hopes, fears, struggles, and dreams are portrayed with such authenticity that it's impossible not to empathize. The film lets you in on private moments, conversations with family, quiet reflections, moments of doubt and vulnerability that humanize the characters beyond their public personas. This emotional accessibility creates a powerful bond between the audience and the story, making every victory sweeter and every setback sting a little more. The laughs sprinkled throughout the film add another dimension to audience engagement. Humor here isn't just comic relief. It's a vital emotional counterbalance that makes the characters feel three-dimensional and the story feel lived in. Whether it's dry wit, playful banter, or situational comedy born out of the unique rodeo lifestyle, these moments lighten the mood just enough to keep the emotional roller coaster manageable, allowing viewers to catch their breath and connect with the characters in a fun, relatable way. It's this blend of heart and humor that keeps the film from becoming too heavy or predictable. What's fascinating is how the film encourages conversation long after the credits roll. The themes of tradition clashing with change, personal identity, family bonds, and community resilience spark thoughtful reflection and debate. Viewers find themselves discussing not just the plot or the rodeo sequences, but the deeper questions the film raises. What does it mean to honor your roots? How do you balance personal ambition with family expectations? What sacrifices are worth making for a dream? These open-ended ideas invite multiple interpretations and lively conversations, turning the film into a cultural touchstone for viewers who connect with its themes on a personal level. Another layer to the film's engagement power lies in its storytelling craft that rewards repeat viewings. On a first watch, the gripping narrative and emotional highs sweep you away. But as you revisit the film, you start noticing subtle character moments, background details, and thematic nuances that enrich the story. This layered storytelling approach means the film doesn't lose its impact after one viewing. Instead, it reveals new facets that deepen appreciation and understanding. This creates a lasting relationship between the film and its audience, encouraging them to come back again and again. The pacing plays a crucial role too, carefully calibrated to keep momentum without rushing or dragging. The film knows when to ramp up excitement and when to pause for emotional depth, allowing viewers to process what they've experienced. This rhythm keeps you engaged because it respects your emotional investment and gives you time to connect with the characters' inner worlds, rather than bombarding you with nonstop action. It's a smart balance that feels satisfying and immersive. Suspense and surprise also keep engagement levels sky high. The film peppers the narrative with unexpected twists and turns, moments where characters make choices you didn't see coming or where situations suddenly escalate. These jolts disrupt any sense of predictability and keep you guessing, making the experience feel fresh and exciting throughout. You're never quite sure what's next, which means your attention is fully locked in. Emotionally, the film is a masterclass in making you feel. It expertly navigates the full spectrum of human experience: joy, fear, hope, heartbreak, resilience, often all within a single scene. Moments of quiet tenderness, such as a heartfelt apology or a shared glance, resonate just as strongly as the high-energy rodeo sequences. This emotional variety ensures you're not just entertained but deeply moved, forging a connection that stays with you long after the movie ends. All of this emotional and narrative richness is wrapped up in a film that invites active participation from its audience. You're not just a passive viewer, you're part of the ride, sharing in the struggles, victories, and transformations. The film's ability to engage so fully, emotionally and intellectually, is a major reason it leaves a lasting impression, making you want to discuss it, think about it, and even watch it again to catch everything you might have missed. In the end, The Last Rodeo is a film that understands how to engage its audience on multiple levels. It's thrilling, heartfelt, funny, and thought-provoking, all at once, creating a rich tapestry of experiences that keep viewers hooked, entertained, and emotionally connected. It's the kind of film that makes you cheer, cry, laugh, and reflect, all in the span of a couple of hours, proving that great storytelling is all about creating a meaningful connection that lasts long after the final scene. All right, let's dive even deeper into how The Last Rodeo stacks up when you start comparing it to other films in its genre, the director's past work, and even the wider landscape of rodeo or sports dramas. This film doesn't just show up wearing the usual cowboy hat and boots. It brings its own flavor to the rodeo arena, and it's worth unpacking exactly how it manages that. First, let's talk genre. Rodeo films and sports dramas often come with a kind of blueprint: a tough, often flawed protagonist with something to prove, a mentor or rival who pushes them to their limits, plenty of action-packed sequences where physical skill and nerve are tested, and usually a climactic showdown where everything is on the line. If you've seen a few of these films, you might be wondering, does The Last Rodeo just tick those boxes, or does it shake things up? Well, it definitely honors the traditional structure, but then cleverly layers on unexpected depth that feels fresh. Instead of focusing solely on the thrill of the ride or the bull, it invites you into the quieter, more complicated spaces, the internal struggles, family dynamics, and cultural ties that shape the characters. It's like the movie says, yeah, there's adrenaline, but what really matters is why these characters are riding in the first place. This emphasis on emotional nuance and character complexity elevates it beyond many genre peers who often skate over these details. When you think of classics or popular entries in the rodeo or cowboy sports genre, like 8 Seconds or The Rider, those films zero in heavily on physical endurance and survival, often portraying the rodeo lifestyle as gritty, raw, and unforgiving. The Last Rodeo shares some of that grit, but adds a strong narrative focus on legacy and community, which feels more layered. While 8 seconds might capture the lightning-fast action, and the writer delves into the vulnerability of a broken body, The Last Rodeo strikes a balance between those extremes. It respects the physical challenge, but doesn't shy away from exploring what rodeo means on a deeper, emotional level: the family ties, the cultural roots, the sacrifices, and the dreams that ride shotgun with every jump and fall. That richer, more textured approach feels like a meaningful evolution of the genre. If you zoom out to look at sports dramas in general, films like Rocky, Creed, or even Million Dollar Baby, you'll notice a certain pattern: an underdog facing overwhelming odds, a redemption arc, and a big emotional payoff. The Last Rodeo follows this formula to an extent but doesn't fall into the trap of predictability. It doesn't hand you all the answers on a silver platter or rush to wrap everything up neatly. Instead, it revels in ambiguity, showing that real life, much like the rodeo, is messy, uncertain, and full of ups and downs. This choice to embrace imperfection and slower, more realistic character development gives the film a grounded authenticity that sets it apart from many slick Hollywood sports dramas where the outcome feels almost predetermined. It's refreshing to see a film in this space willing to take emotional risks. Turning to the director's filmography, fans will spot familiar themes and stylistic flourishes: an eye for naturalistic performances, a knack for blending intimate character moments with broader social or cultural themes, and a visual style that's both gritty and poetic. But The Last Rodeo pushes the director's signature style further by diving deeply into a very specific subculture and giving it a cinematic voice that feels immersive and respectful. It's like the director took all the lessons from previous films about pacing, tone, and character-driven storytelling and poured them into this project with a new level of ambition and nuance. You get the sense this is a filmmaker growing into their craft, experimenting with layered narratives and richer emotional landscapes without losing their core strengths. Compared to bigger franchise or studio rodeo films, which often prioritize spectacle and showmanship, think jaw-dropping bull rides and flashy stunts. The Last Rodeo opts for a more intimate approach. It's less about dazzling with spectacle and more about grounding you in the lived reality of its characters. The practical, real-world settings, the authentic props, and the focus on character-driven storytelling feel like a deliberate choice to prioritize emotional truth over cinematic fireworks. This choice makes the film feel like an indie gem among more commercial rodeo flicks, delivering a more nuanced and emotionally engaging experience that sticks with you. Looking beyond the rodeo genre, The Last Rodeo also stands out among films that explore themes of tradition versus change, legacy, and personal identity. It doesn't fall into cliches or heavy-handed moralizing. Instead, it uses its rodeo backdrop as a microcosm to explore universal questions. How do you honor where you come from while forging your own path? What does it mean to belong to a community, and how do family expectations shape us? These questions feel woven naturally into the narrative, avoiding the pitfall of feeling forced or preachy, which often happens in films that tackle cultural identity. This natural integration makes the story feel alive and relevant. Finally, when you put The Last Rodeo alongside recent waves of sports and character-driven dramas, you notice how it balances the adrenaline rush of competition with the quieter, emotional beats. It's a film that knows when to crank up the intensity and when to pull back and let moments breathe, giving you time to connect with characters and absorb the thematic weight. This pacing and tonal balance give it a rhythm that's both engaging and satisfying, setting it apart from films that either focus too much on spectacle or get bogged down in melodrama. In short, The Last Rodeo isn't just another entry in the rodeo or sports genre. It's a thoughtful reimagining that honors tradition while pushing boundaries. It's a film that feels familiar but also surprising, blending adrenaline-fueled action with deep emotional storytelling. When you line it up next to similar films, it stands tall as a unique voice that invites viewers to look beyond the surface and ride along on a journey that's as much about heart as it is about the rodeo itself. All right, let's really unpack the rich tapestry of symbolism and metaphors woven through The Last Rodeo, because this film isn't content with just telling a straightforward story. It invites you to dive beneath the surface and discover all the hidden meanings quietly pulsing through its images and dialogue. It's like every frame, every object, and every line is packed with double meanings that amplify the themes and emotions in subtle, clever ways. Starting with the rodeo itself, it's not just a sport or a backdrop for action. It's practically a living metaphor for the chaos and unpredictability of life. Each time the protagonist mounts that wild bull, it's not just a test of skill or bravery, but a symbolic wrestling match with fate and personal demons. The bull's thrashing and bucking mirror the internal turmoil of the characters, forces beyond their control throwing them off balance, challenges that demand grit and resilience. The way the rider tries to hold on despite being tossed around perfectly captures the struggle to maintain dignity, identity, and hope even when life seems intent on knocking you down. So, every heart-pounding ride isn't just adrenaline, it's a metaphor for fighting your way through hardship. Then look at how often the film uses images of wide open spaces, the endless highways, sprawling plains, and distant horizons. These aren't just scenic shots to show off the landscape. They symbolize freedom, possibility, and sometimes the daunting unknown. The open road is like a visual mantra reminding us that life is a journey full of promise but also uncertainty. It reflects the characters' internal quests to find their place and purpose. When you see those endless horizons, you're invited to feel that mix of hope and vulnerability, like the world is both vast with opportunity and intimidating in its emptiness. Horses also carry deep symbolic weight in the film. Unlike the wild and unpredictable bull, the horse represents partnership, trust, and a different kind of control, one that's built on mutual respect rather than domination. When the protagonist connects with a horse, it's not just about riding. It's a moment of emotional intimacy, a symbol of harmony between human and nature, tradition and change. The horse scenes underscore the idea that some battles are not about conquering but about cooperation and understanding, which adds a beautiful layer of nuance to the story. The use of color and light in The Last Rodeo is another masterstroke in symbolism. Warm golden tones during sunrise and sunset scenes symbolize hope, renewal, and fresh starts. These moments bathe the characters in light, literally and figuratively, suggesting new opportunities or moments of clarity. In contrast, colder, shadowy scenes are used to reflect fear, doubt, or internal conflict. The shifting palette creates an emotional ebb and flow that mirrors the characters' journeys, helping the audience feel the highs and lows without a single line of dialogue. It's visual poetry that makes the mood shift tangible. Fences and barriers, both literal and metaphorical, show up repeatedly and pack a punch as symbols. The rodeo arena's fences can feel like protective boundaries, but also confining walls. This duality mirrors the characters' struggles with the limits imposed by family expectations, tradition, or their own fears. The tension between the desire to break free and the comfort of safety plays out visually in these frames, making the idea of freedom versus restriction a constant undercurrent. Watching characters move around or confront these barriers adds a silent but powerful commentary on personal growth and societal pressures. Dialogue is another treasure trove of symbolism. Phrases like, holding on, riding out the storm, or finding your footing work on multiple levels. They reflect the literal rodeo actions, but also serve as metaphors for perseverance and resilience in the face of adversity. These repeated verbal motifs reinforce the film's central ideas and give the script a poetic rhythm that resonates long after the scenes end. It's like the words themselves are part of the film's symbolic language, tying together narrative, theme, and emotion. Even small, seemingly throwaway moments have metaphorical resonance. A worn-out pair of boots might symbolize the weight of legacy and hard-earned experience. A broken fence post could represent fractured relationships or challenges that need mending. The director peppers the film with these tiny details that, when noticed, add texture and richness to the storytelling. It's a reminder that in The Last Rodeo, every object and image is carefully chosen to echo the deeper themes. Ultimately, the symbolism and metaphors in The Last Rodeo aren't just decorative, they actively shape how the story is experienced. They give viewers a way to connect emotionally and intellectually, offering layers that can be unpacked over multiple viewings. This hidden language of images, colors, objects, and phrases invites audiences to look closer, think deeper, and feel more intensely, turning what might be a simple sports drama into a resonant meditation on life's struggles, triumphs, and the enduring human spirit. It's this subtle richness that makes the film linger in your mind long after the credits roll, inviting reflection on both the wild ride on the bull and the wild ride of life itself. All right, let's really dig deep into the franchise and historical context surrounding The Last Rodeo, because this film isn't just a standalone piece. It's part of a much bigger story, whether you realize it or not. Even though it's not officially attached to a sprawling franchise or a direct sequel, it's deeply rooted in the cultural and cinematic traditions that have been built up around rodeo and Western-themed storytelling for decades. This connection adds a rich layer of meaning and resonance that might not be obvious on a first watch, but definitely rewards those who understand the broader context. First off, the rodeo itself isn't just a backdrop. It's an iconic symbol with a long history in American culture. Movies and stories about the Wild West, cowboys, and rodeo champions have been telling tales of grit, courage, and personal struggle for generations. The Last Rodeo fits squarely within this tradition, but also manages to update it for a modern audience. It draws on the mythos of the rugged, independent cowboy while exploring themes that feel fresh and relevant today. Things like identity, family legacy, and the challenge of balancing tradition with change. It's like the film is having a conversation with all those classic westerns and rodeo dramas that came before, but with its own unique voice and perspective. If you look at it as part of this unofficial lineage or franchise of rodeo and cowboy films, you can see how it both honors and reinvents the genre. Classic rodeo films often focus on the spectacle of the sport and the physical bravery involved, but The Last Rodeo adds layers of emotional complexity and character depth. It's not just about the bull riding, it's about the people behind it, their dreams, struggles, and relationships. This makes the film feel like a meaningful evolution of the genre, bringing new life and nuance to a story type that could easily become predictable or cliché. From a historical angle, the film's portrayal of the rodeo world is impressively immersive and authentic. The filmmakers clearly put effort into researching the culture, the rituals, and even the smallest details like costumes, gear, and vernacular. This attention to detail makes the setting feel lived in and believable, not just a generic Western backdrop, but a real place with its own unique traditions and rhythms. The rodeo scenes pulse with an energy that feels genuine, capturing both the thrill and danger of the sport alongside the camaraderie and community that surround it. This balance between realism and drama helps ground the story in a way that feels respectful and true to the people it represents. The film also touches on how rodeo as a tradition fits into today's world. It doesn't shy away from showing the tensions between the old ways and modern life, the pressure to maintain legacy versus the need to adapt. This cultural push and pull reflects broader societal debates about heritage, identity, and progress. By engaging with these themes, The Last Rodeo offers more than just entertainment. It provides a thoughtful commentary on how traditions survive or evolve over time. Even for viewers who aren't deeply familiar with rodeo or westerns, the film's rich historical and cultural context helps create a strong sense of place and meaning. Every scene feels like it's rooted in a specific community with its own values and history. This grounding invites the audience to step into that world and experience its challenges and joys firsthand. It turns the film into more than just a personal story. It becomes a window into a cultural heritage that's both enduring and dynamic. On a meta level, the film's nods and subtle references to classic rodeo films and Western motifs are like a wink to longtime fans of the genre. These moments create a layered viewing experience where you can enjoy the story on its surface or dig deeper to appreciate the intertextual dialogue with past films. This interplay between old and new enriches the narrative, making it a part of a continuous storytelling tradition rather than a one-off event. In short, The Last Rodeo may not be the start of a multi-film franchise or a retelling of a historical event, but it sits proudly within a larger cultural and cinematic ecosystem. It draws on decades of rodeo lore and Western storytelling, updating these elements for a modern audience while respecting their roots. This balance of tradition and innovation makes it a fascinating film to watch, not only as an exciting drama, but as a meaningful cultural artifact that both honors and reinvents the rodeo mythos. Whether you're a rodeo fan, a Western aficionado, or just someone who loves a good story about human resilience and identity, understanding this context adds a whole new level of appreciation to the film's impact. All right, Let's really unpack the budget and box office story behind The Last Rodeo, because it's a tale that shows how filmmaking isn't always about giant paychecks and exploding opening weekends. Sometimes, it's about smart decisions, knowing your audience, and making every penny punch above its weight. This film's budget wasn't one of those Hollywood mega millions where you get CGI explosions every 2 minutes or A-list stars commanding astronomical fees. Instead, it was more modest, more craftsman's workshop than Hollywood factory. But what's fascinating is how that budget shaped the film's production quality and eventual box office journey in ways that actually worked in its favor. First, the production team clearly prioritized authenticity and atmosphere over flashy effects or expensive set pieces. They invested in real locations, detailed set designs, and costumes that nailed the rodeo aesthetic down to the tiniest detail. Practical effects and real rodeo sequences gave the film an edge of realism that's often missing from big-budget blockbusters loaded with CGI. When you watch the film, you can feel that grit and texture in every scene. The dust, the sweat, the worn leather. It all comes together because the budget was funneled into areas that mattered most to telling the story well. The cinematography and lighting also benefited, with the crew making excellent use of natural light and carefully chosen camera setups that gave the film a polished look without draining the funds. This kind of thoughtful, focused budgeting is like a masterclass in efficiency, where every dollar is spent with a purpose. But how did this translate into box office results? Well, The Last Rodeo didn't burst onto the scene like a lightning bolt. It was more of a slow burn, gathering momentum primarily through word of mouth and targeted marketing rather than massive ad campaigns or splashy premieres. The film found its initial success in regions and communities with a deep connection to rodeo culture, places where people could see themselves and their heritage reflected on screen. In these pockets, the movie became something of a must-see event, drawing crowds eager for a story that felt personal and authentic rather than generic. This grassroots enthusiasm helped the film maintain a solid presence in theaters over several weeks, even when competing against bigger studio releases. The marketing strategy played a crucial role in shaping this trajectory. Rather than trying to cast the widest net possible, the campaign zeroed in on the film's strengths. Its emotional depth, authentic depiction of rodeo life, and themes of family and legacy. Trailers and posters highlighted moments of tension and triumph within the rodeo arena, but also intimate scenes that showed the human side of the story. This approach attracted a specific audience segment: Western genre fans, rodeo enthusiasts, and viewers looking for a heartfelt drama rather than just action and spectacle. Additionally, partnerships with rodeo events and community screenings helped generate local buzz and foster a sense of community involvement around the film. These efforts were smart, cost-effective ways to build a loyal fan base without needing a multi-million-dollar advertising budget. Now, on the flip side, there were limitations that the modest budget inevitably imposed. The film didn't have the resources to hire megastars with massive box office draw, nor could it afford sprawling international marketing campaigns. This limited its reach to more mainstream audiences who might prefer bigger, glossier productions with familiar faces. Additionally, the film's pacing and character-driven focus meant it wasn't necessarily designed to appeal to viewers looking for non-stop action or high-concept thrills, which sometimes impacted word-of-mouth outside its core demographic. Critics and casual moviegoers looking for fast-paced entertainment might have been less enthusiastic, which in turn affected its overall box office numbers. Despite these challenges, The Last Rodeo managed to recoup its investment and even turn a profit, which is a big win for any film that's not backed by a huge studio budget. The steady ticket sales over time, combined with strategic marketing and strong audience engagement, made the financial picture much healthier than many indie or mid-budget films face. Plus, ancillary revenue streams, like digital rentals, streaming rights, and international sales, added layers of income that further balanced the scales. So when you step back and look at the big picture, The Last Rodeo is a perfect example of how a film doesn't need a colossal budget to succeed. By focusing on story, authenticity, and a clearly defined target audience, it turned financial constraints into creative advantages. The budget shaped the production in ways that enhanced the film's tone and realism, while the marketing and audience reception combined to create a respectable box office presence. In the end, it's a reminder that filmmaking is as much about strategy and heart as it is about dollars, and The Last Rodeo rode that line with impressive skill. Alright, let's talk about where you can catch The Last Rodeo and how to get the absolute best experience from this film, because honestly, the way you watch it can really change the whole vibe. If you're someone who loves the big screen and that immersive surround sound experience, then hitting the theaters is definitely the way to go. The movie was released in select cinemas, especially in regions where rodeo culture runs deep, so you might find it playing in your local theater or a nearby indie cinema that likes to showcase unique, heartfelt dramas. Watching it on the big screen means you get to soak in all the gritty details, from the dust kicking up in the arena to the subtle expressions on the actors' faces. It's like being right there in the middle of the action, which is perfect for a film that's all about atmosphere and emotional beats. Now, if you missed it in theaters or prefer watching from the comfort of your couch, the film quickly made its way to digital platforms. You can find The Last Rodeo available for rental or purchase on popular services like Amazon Prime Video, iTunes, Google Play, and Vudu. Renting it digitally is a great option if you want a one-time viewing, while buying lets you revisit the film whenever you want. Perfect for those moments when you need a dose of that rodeo spirit or just want to dive back into the story. Streaming it on these platforms gives you flexibility. You can watch it on your TV, tablet, or even your phone, making it easy to enjoy whether you're relaxing at home or on the go. For those who subscribe to streaming services, keep an eye out because the film has also been licensed to appear on certain platforms that specialize in indie and drama films. This means it might pop up on services like Hulu, HBO Max, or Netflix, depending on your region and the timing. These platforms usually offer great picture quality and subtitles, which help if you want to catch every nuance in the dialogue or just prefer a laid-back viewing setup. Plus, streaming allows you to pause, rewind, and really soak in scenes that hit you emotionally or visually, which can enhance your appreciation of the film's craftsmanship. If you're a fan of physical media, collectors will be pleased to know The Last Rodeo has also been released on Blu-ray and DVD. This edition usually comes packed with extras like behind-the-scenes footage, director's commentary, and interviews with the cast and crew. It's a treasure trove for anyone who wants to go beyond just watching the story and dive into how the film was made, the locations, the challenges, the small moments that don't make it to the final cut but add so much flavor to the whole experience. Ultimately, the best way to watch The Last Rodeo depends on your personal style and what kind of atmosphere you want. If you crave the full sensory immersion and that communal energy of a theater crowd, catch it on the big screen when it's available near you. If you want convenience and flexibility, digital rental or purchase is your friend, letting you watch anytime and anywhere. And if you love the extras and owning a physical piece of cinema, the Blu-ray is definitely worth hunting down. No matter how you choose to watch, the story and the world of The Last Rodeo have been crafted so thoughtfully that they'll grab you and take you on a ride worth remembering.